You asked me earlier, is there an appraiser shortage? Not of licensed or certified people. Of real appraisers, maybe.
Originating from deep inside the Rocky Mountains, transported through the power of the internet, and arriving inside your tiny earbuds. It's the Appraiser Coach Podcast, helping appraisers increase their efficiency, quality, and make more money. Here's the guy who makes it his life's mission to create value for real estate appraisers nationwide. Your host and the Appraiser Coach, Dustin Harris.
And welcome back to the program, everybody. Dustin Harris, hanging out with you, a wonderful friend of mine and guest coming up. I want to welcome you to the program. Quick shout out to each of our sponsors, of course, OREP Insurance. OREP is the insurance that I use for my E&O. I'm in the process of renewing right now, and they make it so easy, folks. Check them out. Go to orep.org. Let me spell that for you. It's OREP.org. Alamode software, of course, is software I've been using for over 20 years to help me to produce more with less. It's alamode.com or 800-ALAMODE. And finally, we're sponsored by Datamaster. Datamaster, saving you time. When you save time, you save money as a real estate appraiser. Check them out. Go to datamasterusa.com. Make sure you put that USA in there, datamasterusa.com. Now, I want to welcome back to the program a good friend of mine. It's been a while. Ernie Durbin is back on. Ernie, welcome.
Thank you, Dustin. It's good to be back on with you.
Well, it's always good to have you, my friend. Ernie, of course, is a CRE, SRA, AI-RRS. I could keep on going. Of course, he's the Chief Valuation Officer at Clarocity. Let's talk about modernization today. Ernie, how's that sound?
Hey, you know, that's my favorite topic, right?
Sure it is. It's not the favorite topic of a lot of appraisers, unfortunately. Let's start with the foundation here. The FHFA issued a call recently. In fact, it was December of 2020. Talk to us about that call. What are they requesting?
You know, it's over, by the way. If you didn't respond, it's too late.
It's too late.
Yeah, because the responses had to be in by February 28th. But it was it came out, I want to say, on the 28th of December, or very end of December. And they were requesting, they had 19 specific questions to stakeholders in the valuation space regarding appraiser modernization, racial bias, all kinds of different things, really.
Yeah.
But probably waivers were a big topic there. And the actual document's like 20 pages. It's a good read, believe it or not.
Yeah.
For appraisers, because FHFA spells out all the problems that they've perceived in the market and the feedback they've got. They have a lot of great history on previous modernization efforts. Again, I really encourage people to download it and read it. And then there were the 19 questions, which is, I actually responded 3 times, Dustin. I can't get enough once. I responded on as the chairperson of the Government Affairs Committee of the Collateral Risk Network, CRN. And there, I summarized the 4 different stakeholders that replied through the CRN, summarized their opinions, and inserted a little bit of my own there. And then for Clarocity, as Chief Valuation Officer, I had a responsibility. And then I had my own views that I don't think Clarocity or CRN necessarily want to call their own. So I had my own response.
Very good. Let's start with a high-level question, Ernie. And we're going to dig into the details here throughout the podcast. But I want to just start with an idea of, when appraisers hear the word modernization, I think it strikes fear into many. Why? What's the deal with change in appraisers?
Well, I mean, it's not just appraisers, Dustin. It's anybody. I mean, we as humans get set in a very comfortable position, and nobody wants to move from that position. And so, if you've been doing things the same way for a long time, and you have systems built around that, any disruption in that, even if it's more efficient for a certain period of time, it costs efficiency, learning, and changing.
Sure.
So I think it's unfair to say it's appraisers. It's like part of our culture.
It's a human nature thing.
Yeah, I think everybody doesn't. Nobody likes change. Now, there are potential economic impacts to this change. I think modernization certainly involves appraisers being able to produce more reports. That's the goal, right? And if appraisers can produce more reports and we have roughly the same amount of appraisals, what does that mean? That means we either make less or we have less appraisers, right? So I think that is probably the crux of the modernization issue for appraisers.
Right.
Is it feels like a existential threat to the profession.
Yeah, I don't think any appraiser would complain about being able to efficiently and effectively with quality do a higher volume, but I definitely think that there may be a two-edged sword there, and the concern, of course, is what happens to my fees.
And efficiency doesn't. We always think of efficiency as meaning, well, if it's faster, it can't be better. I don't think so. I mean, you mentioned DataMaster as one of your sponsors here, and to toot their horn a little bit, they import a lot of information that if I were typing, I'm a terrible typist. There's a pretty good chance I would mistype some of that or miss it entirely. Right.
Right.
So being faster there also makes me better.
Okay. Well, let's dig into this document a little bit. Let's start with, well, you brought up the topic of volume. Let's talk about appraisers, because there's an interesting chart in this document. And I think the concern with appraisers has been that there's been a lot of call out there over the last couple of years, actually, about the shortage of appraisers. There's a shortage of appraisers. And I think that there's opinions all over the place, but there's a chart in there from Freddie Mac, showing the number of appraisers versus the number of appraisals. And I'll tell you, Ernie, if one didn't know better, it sure seems like there's a shortage of appraisers right now.
Yeah, that chart was developed by Freddie Mac, and Scott Reuter has shared it numerous times at different events. And what it does demonstrate, and I'm going to reframe this shortage talk, and let's talk about capacity.
Please do. Yeah.
Right? So it really shows that there's not enough capacity, appraiser capacity, for the volume going through as primarily a result of COVID. And also interest rate changes that occurred leading up to that. We've been in this refi boom forever, and of course, the Fed further loosened things to keep credit flowing during COVID. And look, if that chart's on page 5, I know from memory, I think it's figure 1, and that's a good thing for appraisers to look at, because it shows that while the number of appraisers have remained relatively steady, and by the way, that's a rock solid number, because that is a number coming out of the GSC database for unique appraisers, right?
Right.
So
and just to be clear, we're talking about appraisers that do lender work.
Right, exactly, but that's the issue here.
Right. Exactly.
Lender appraisals, and so it's safe to say if you do lender work for mortgage work, that your work goes through Fannie and Freddie, and you're identified. There's
sure. You got a number. It's tattooed on your arm.
You got a number. That's right. Somewhere. Yeah. And so the moral of the story is, we know that there's 50 or 45,000 plus or minus. I can't remember the number that was on there. And then we see this giant spike in volume.
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder, I know we've all been busy, but the truth of the matter is, how do we handle all that volume?
Right.
Well, it's no spoiler alert here. We handle it with waivers, right?
Yeah.
That's how the lending industry handled. 40 waivers went from, 10 sub 15%, somewhere 10, 12% to 40, 45% over this last year, which of course appraisers hate waivers. I understand it. I get that, but let's talk turkey here. If we didn't have those waivers, we'd be in a terrible lending crisis. And if you think you're busy now, you wouldn't be able to handle the business. And on top of just being busy, our whole industry would be stressed, and people would be looking at other completely different alternatives, because we would be holding up lending for months and months, right? So those waivers are kind of a wastegate on a turbocharger, right? Kind of takes the pressure off. But that's a temporary fix. That's not a solution to the capacity. It's a capacity issue.
Right.
Now, the reason why I frame it that way is because without the proper tools and the proper software and the training, our job would be unsustainable, right? I mean, it takes the average appraiser 5+ hours to produce an appraisal. Now, I've been in this business since 1982, and there once was a time when you could do a couple a day,
right,
and still get home for dinner.
3 comps and you're done, right?
Yeah, 3 comps in a cloud of dust is what I used to say. But that can't be anymore, right? There's just, and so the scope creep that's occurred there means that we don't have new appraisers. We have an additional workload. That means that we can't do as many in a day. And imagine if we didn't make the technological moves we've made, how much worse it'd be. So we have a capacity problem, right? Now, that means that you solve that capacity by either having appraisers do more work and produce more product, or you add enough appraiser capacity, which we also call competitors, by the way.
That's what I heard.
So you add appraiser capacity to meet those needs. And then when the market falls off, you have excess capacity. What happens to our fees with excess capacity, Coach? I mean,
back to marketing and economics 101, right?
So the solution that I think the modernization solution that FHFA is looking at probably is, how do we kind of solve both those issues? We continue to bring new entrants into the business by making the economics right, and at the same time make appraisers be able to produce more product and diversify their product base, right? And that's a huge topic for another day. Appraisers, there's so many different ways you can make money than filling out a 1004, and actually even than doing an appraisal.
Right.
And,
right. Amen. Amen, brother. Okay. So speaking of modernization, speaking of technology, of course, the big buzz, and this, of course, is talked about in the document that we're referring to, is the new forms. And I use the word form, by the way, in quotation marks, because we're not really looking at forms here, right? Talk to us about what's coming.
Yeah, there aren't no, I mean, the new form is not a form.
Right.
It's a data set, right? And to be frank, it's something I have lobbied for ages and ages and ages, well before FHFA understood data sets. I think that appraisers, the appraisal occurs in your mind, and then you report it on a piece of paper or on a PDF or in some type of a form. It can be, and as we know, you can even do an oral report, right? So appraisals can be expressed different ways, and it's important for us to be able to produce a report where we can measure our compliance with USPAP. It's us that's compliant, not reports, right? So
Correct.
that, right? And so the reports measure our compliance. Now, having said that, the GSE, they don't really care about the reports. They need the data to analyze their risk. And so same for lenders. We need the report to protect ourselves and demonstrate our compliance with standards 1 and 2, or actually primarily standard 2, but also our actions through that report in standard 1. Now, so it's not a form. It will be a form. It'll be a process on screen that allows us to walk through the process. And I believe with all my heart that the software vendors and other people involved in the development will try to emulate a process that assists the appraiser in being as USPAP compliant as possible, right? As we possibly can be. What gets pushed out and what's recorded in our work file may be two different things.
Yeah. So for those who have not followed, talk to us briefly about what this looks like. You said there's a screen, there's a quote unquote form on the screen, but I mean, you've seen the quote unquote new forms. What does this look like for appraisers?
Well, it won't look anything like what we're seeing in the beta versions, and the forms really are just collection containers more than anything else at this point. It's more about the process and which direction you go based on the answer that you make, right? For instance, in our existing form, if you will, which by the way came out in '84, basically same year that Space Shuttle Discovery was launched for the first time. Space Shuttle Discovery retired in 2011, and we're still using the same damn appraisal form. Just
Right.
won't mention that, right? That we retired the Space Shuttle because it's not technologically adequate. But anyway, so in our current form, whenever we have a cost approach section that we seldom really spend much time on. We have an income section that we don't spend much time on. So imagine a scenario in the future where you discuss the scope of work. You say, I considered these approaches, but they're not necessary for a credible result. They're not included in the form output, right? And that's great.
Yeah.
This makes
not even there to see, because there's nothing there. It's just data.
Basement section.
So, yeah.
You know what? My property has a ranch, and my property's a ranch. Do you have a basement? No. Okay, well, I'm not going to ask you all these damn questions about a basement.
Yeah.
All right. And I'll have to tab through them,
All right. So the big question, Ernie, that I've been asked by my colleagues is, okay, I get it. Sure, they're after the data, but what happens to me as an appraiser who spends and really prides myself on spending a lot of time, what it defined a lot, but spend a significant amount of time describing why I did what I did, the reconciliation, the description of the adjustments, where they came from. If I'm just putting data in a form, what about all that narrative stuff?
Well, you really touched on a sensitive point for me there. I think that the unique selling position of the appraiser over a BPO, over an eval, everything else is reconciliation.
Sure.
Right. That's what we bring to the market. The ability to say, we looked at this data. Here's how we reconcile discrepancies. Here's our professional opinion on this. These differences. That's called reconciliation.
Sure.
Now, the data containers they're trying to make the data as discrete as possible so that there's less narration, because machines don't think yet.
But state boards do.
What's that?
But state boards do.
Right. Yeah. And the GSEs want to be able to run all kinds of algorithms behind the scenes and define and test risk based on data sets. So they're creating a lot of containers that'll probably never be used or will only be used in certain instances where a question is answered, and then those are opened up. But there will still be general comments areas, and appraisers will need to use those, because you can't, you need to describe why you chose that 1-bedroom comp to your 3-bedroom comp. I mean, that just doesn't make sense to a machine, except for the fact that it's 1 bedroom, it's right across the street, and it used to be a 3-bedroom, and it can be reconverted for $1,500, and the market didn't really react to it. Okay, well, try putting that in a data container.
Well, right, and then the second question is, what about my work file? What about my report itself? If I'm in a portal filling out data and hit the send button, what do I have for me?
Yeah, that's a big issue, right? So I mean, they will have to have a means. And by the way, we have this at Clarocity where you can, because we have some online forms, our MVP product and others, where you can download the content of the data that was provided to you for your electronic work file. By the way,
wait a second, I got to get rid of my folders and my file cabinets.
yes, we do. that means that you'll be able to work from anywhere. You can go see your grandkids on the weekend and still take your work files with you, because we know that appraisers have to work on the weekend because it's part of what we do. Yeah. But I mean, you follow right now, as you know, I think I'm coming to you from the Great Smoky Mountains in my Airstream trailer, Airstream 1, as my corporate people say. And I have a VA I'm working on that I inspected the other day. I'm doing it here because I have an electronic work file.
Yes, you do. And I'm looking through your back window, and I swear I see green back there, which is the concept for me right now. We're speaking with Ernie Durbin. He, of course, is the Chief Evaluation Officer at Clarocity. We're talking about modernization and specifically where the FHFA is moving. When we get back from the break, Ernie, I want to talk to you about some more change. I want to talk to you about the alternatives out there, and you touched on, of course, the waivers and such. I want to talk to you a little bit more about that and where we're going as a group of appraisers. I want to pause here and remind you of where you should be going as a group of appraisers. It was touched on earlier, and that is technology, the ability to be able to save time and not have to cut quality. In fact, increasing the quality at the same time. That's what DataMaster will do for you. Save you about 30 to 60 minutes per report. On average, it saves us about 40 minutes. We've done the math. And folks, think about that. If you take the number 40 and times it by the number of appraisals that you did last month, tell me this is not worth it. Check them out. Go to datamasterusa.com. It's datamasterusa.com. Of course, Alamode also focused on technology, quality, and the ability to help appraisers to keep their quality high and yet their volume moving. It's Alamode. You can find out more by picking up the phone and calling them. It's 800 Alamode, or you can get on their website at alamode.com. Find out what they have to offer. Folks, there are so many tools and abilities in this software that will just blow you away. It's alamode.com or 800 Alamode. Finally, we're sponsored by OREP Insurance. I mentioned earlier at the first of the program that I'm in the process of renewing my E&O. Folks, I'm telling you, literally within 10 minutes of me sending an email and saying, hey, I know I'm way early. By the way, I'm still 3 months out. And I start about 4 months early renewing my E&O. I know what it takes or how quickly the AMCs will drop you if you get close to that renewal date. So about 4 months out, I have a little reminder comes up, says, hey, renew your E&O. I reached out to OREP within 10 minutes. They sent me the application back. Very, very simple to fill out, literally less than 5 minutes. It just doesn't take any time at all. They shop it, they find the best price, and they get back to me. That's the kind of service that you'll have with OREP. It's OREP.org. One more time, OREP.org. All right, folks, welcome back to the program. We're on with my good friend, Ernie Durbin, who is coming to us from the Smoky Mountains, beautiful Smoky Mountains, in his Airstream trailer. God, you got a good life, Ernie.
You know what? God's blessed me. I do have a good life. Yeah. I have great kids and yes. And I kept things simple too now. I mean, because whenever I get out of the Airstream, I'm in a little 2-bedroom condo, no big giant mansion.
Well, you look good, my friend, and you're in a good place. All right, we're talking about the request for input, or the RFI, on appraisal modernization, and this, of course, came out in December of 2020. As Ernie talked about, the comment period is closed, but I think it's important that we go through this document, Ernie, and talk a little bit about modernization and what they're doing here. Talk to us more about the direction that FHFA is moving, and of course that affects all of us that does lender work.
Well, the very first question they had is, I'm going to boil or summarize it. Basically, is there a need for modernization given the capacity issues? And that's very distilled there. Every stakeholder that I represented and that I summarized through the CRN said, yes, there's a need for modernization. The difference is, what's that look like to each different stakeholder, right? Almost every stakeholder said that the waivers were overused. So okay. They know that there's too many of them. They present a risk, and I think that's understood right now. Given the marketplace we're in, they're kind of accepted as an emergency alternative to capacity issues. But this modernization, every stakeholder says there needs to be something between, and this is my phrase, the binary choice that we have right now. We've got waiver. By the way, right now it's waiver with no inspection, just waiver, right? And then we've got 1004 or conform or whatever. But I mean, there's nothing really in between there. There's, of course, the flexibilities for COVID, but those flexibilities, by the way, were only used about 9 or 10% of the time. So, and just to emphasize what you're saying, Ernie, just to make sure that the listeners are following, they tried this bifurcated thing for a while and basically put the brakes on it before COVID. Well, yeah. When you say tried, they were in a test and learn environment, and what they put the brakes on was the test and learn, right? And there's all kinds of reasons behind that. A lot of appraisers feel like it was because it was not successful. I will tell you, based on my knowledge and my understanding inside the GSEs, that was not the reason FHFA put the
That's
brakes
what we
on
want
it.
to believe, right?
The reason why they put the brakes on it is I'm under non-disclosure about, but let's safe to say that
It's not because it didn't work,
and it will resume.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, the testing will resume, I should say. And for that matter of fact, it's still going on. They just can't add to the testing is the difference right now. So
what does this mean moving forward, Ernie? Because I think some appraisers, maybe not most, some appraisers are a little bit worried about the future. I mean, are we going to start taking out loans through estimates? Or, I mean, what does the appraisal world look like moving forward?
You know, the appraisal world looks like appraisers having a multitude of products that they will produce in the mortgage space. And they need that whole binary idea, you know, it's either waiver or full appraisal. No, there needs to be different scopes of work in between there. And we understand the nature of scope of work. There's, you know, we make that fit to we right size that for the amount of risk that our client has. Right. And so, for instance, hey man, use waivers. But the problem with AVMs in general, waivers are just AVMs, right? With credit packages wrapped around it. The problem with them is they don't know externalities. They don't know what's around the property. They don't know the condition of the property, and they don't know the quality of construction. Quality of construction, they can have some electronic hypothesis on, but the other things are human experiences that need to be observed. So I see a future where appraisers, if they're smart, offer a multitude of services and say, you know what, one of the things I will offer is a waiver inspection. You want that property measured. You want somebody to tell you what the condition of the property is and the quality of construction. That's within my appraisal practice. That's within my expertise. You pay me 150, 200 bucks. I'll go out there and do these things. Right. Because guess what? I do them right now for new construction whenever I'm doing a construction draw, you know, without mentioning the fee. And I mentioned the fee, but you know what I'm saying? Sure. Pay me well enough is what I'm trying to communicate. Right. And I'll do the inspection. Then you tell me whether you want me to do the appraisal based on the waiver. Hey, I'll continue doing the appraisal if you want that, right? Now I've taken money out of the coffers in the waiver environment, and by the way, protected the public trust and the GSEs as a result of them having my expertise. Or let's say they look at it and they say, you know what? Yes, please do an appraisal, but we just want qualitative analysis. We don't want all this extra stuff, you know, just what's necessary for you to form a proper opinion of value, and with a different scope of work. Then that might be different than the full 1004. So there could be a multitude of different products that are there. But by the way, another thing, almost everybody, every response I read regarding the RFI was, hey, why aren't we using appraisal trainees for these property inspections?
Amen.
Right. And by the way, and it's such a dichotomous thing that we would use a uncertified, unlicensed, unregulated inspector to view a property and make these decisions in terms of the appraisal arena, unregulated, and not allow a trainee to inspect a property that the supervisor works up. I mean,
please tell me that's going to change, Ernie. Please tell me.
I think it will. I
so.
really do. And so anyway, yeah, multitude of products. I think in the future, look, I'm just going to be frank and get your email filter ready. I'll have mine ready.
Hey, this is you talking, not me. I just had you on as a guest, man.
This is what we agreed to say earlier. No, there's going to be less appraisers in the future who make more money and provide a variety of services. Well, the capacity issue will be solved by a variety of different services, and we won't need the same amount of appraisers that we have, but we will, because there's no reason for us to be working the same way we're working since the early 80s. There's no reason for us to do this.
Well, and I'll tell you, Ernie, I've seen it so many times, and really this COVID thing, this pandemic, and the waivers and you know, the alternatives to a full walkthrough has shown me more than any time in my and I haven't been doing appraisals like you have, Ernie. You're an OG. You're an OG. But 25 years I've been doing this. I've never seen more of a need for appraisers to say, look, here's why an appraiser is needed. Here's why our expertise is needed. And there's so many appraisers I just don't think got it. They kept doing things the way that they've always done them, where now, Ernie, I'm telling you, this is the God honest truth. I reviewed an appraisal last week on one of my peers, and I'm telling you, maybe people are in different markets than I'm in, but we are seeing at least a 1% per month increase in value right now. This guy used sales that were 9, 10, and 11 months old, 0 time adjustment, marked stable on the market, marked in balance as far as the shortage goes, I mean, what in the world are we doing? This is such an opportunity for us as appraisers to shine, and we're missing the boat, guys.
Really quick there, Coach. The appraiser, the behavior you describe in that licensed or certified appraiser, right? Licensed or certified appraiser. Are they an appraiser?
I mean, they're checking boxes.
No, they're not. They're
not even checking boxes. They're using the template. I mean,
they're a forms technician. So I guess you asked me earlier, is there appraiser shortage? Not of licensed or certified people, of real appraisers, maybe.
Yeah, good point. Ernie Durbin, Chief Valuation Officer at Clarocity. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you. We end on that positive note, I guess.
It is a positive note, my friend. I'm excited about the future. I'm excited about things that will be happening moving forward. Ernie Durbin, friend of me, friend of the program. Thank you for joining us. And folks, we will catch you next time.
You've been listening to the Appraiser Coach podcast with Dustin Harris. If you like what you hear, please give us a 5-star rating and post a short review on iTunes. For more in-depth insider information on how you can make more money as a real estate appraiser, visit theappraisercoach.com and sign up for the All-Star team today. Thanks for joining us. And now, get out there and create some value.